This is Ezekiel Dasho, and I had a request from one of my friends to talk about how I approach crosshatching. And so I thought I'd take this opportunity to just cover a little bit of that with this video. And so I've got this bowl of fruit here, and it gives us a number of nice geometric shapes to look at, natural shapes. And I'm not going to get too worried with the I guess the realism of it all. Basically, I just want to quickly lay in the forms as though we're doing a gesture drawing or something. If a still life can be said to have a gesture. And so I'm going to just use my fountain pen to do that. And I think you could really do this with any drawing implement that you favor. Anything that you feel like you could get good line quality with. And even on these areas here where, there's definitely no line, I'm just going to complete that. And right now I'm basically just drawing a cartoon of this still life and giving us sort of a map to crosshatch on. And the bananas, we'll just draw this part of the bunch first and look for those bananas that seem to be in front of the others. So like this one here. And here, and we'll just look for these lines that indicate the planes for the lighting, but are also part of the shape of the peel. And so I don't want to get too bogged down in the details. I mean, I want it to look good, but I'm not going to get too worried about it for now because, like I said, this is just a way to get some space for us to crosshatch on the page. Let's just complete the bowl here. So something like that. And just to give us the rough outline of what we're looking at. And now let's start with the fun part. So the way that I approach the cross hatching is pretty much in there are two factors. That's like location and in intensity or value. Each shadow can kind of be its own thing. So like here in this part of the bowl would be a very dark region, with this part of the bowl being a little less dark but still dark. And all the way up to the bright spot on the pomegranate where it's the light's hitting it directly, in the pear here. And that would be like basically the bright end of the spectrum. So if you watch my hand videos, it's very similar. But what we can do is go in with basically the first round of cross-hatching, which is relatively even, and let's just complete some of these lines here. And so let's just get started with that and kind of show you what I mean. If I was doing this at home and I wasn't making a video with it, I would be turning my page a lot. But I want to keep it still so that it's easier for the home viewer to analyze. And so like here, generally I want to find the shortest distance across these forms for stuff like this, for these background shapes, these inanimate shapes. Like this layer of cross-hatching is going to fade into the background a little bit by the time the picture's done. So I'm not too worried about the angles, and mainly just getting that in and getting a layer down. And let's just start on the left and work toward the right, and that's basically just because I'm right-handed. And so like this area here is quite dark, so that is, call it one shadow region. So my cat will call it the shadow region of neglect, because while I'm drawing it, she is not sitting on my lap. Okay, so that's 3 layers, and so we'll just leave that for now and maybe come back to it again a little bit later. But another place where it's really dark would be like right here. Some of these areas are so small that like this area is a little bigger, so you can actually see the line quality in there. And let's go around looking for more. And here, rather than drawing a line, we'll just start to ink it in. And that third layer. So under here, it looks like there's a grapefruit or something, like between this lemon and this apple, or maybe this is an upside down pear. Can't quite tell. But so let's, I think a good way to approach this is to put one layer down and then put the other layer down that way, and then you can see there are some various tonalities to the shadow here. So like closer to the pomegranate and this lemon are casting a shadow. And then closer to this pears are casting another shadow. And so what we want is for like the regions that are shadowed to overlap, but to have various values. Sometimes when the area is really small like this, you can get by with just, even depending on what you're drawing with, like adding little dots, because it's gonna be filled in, with a brush stroke rather than needing to be cross-hatched. So this would be like a dot area, and that's just depends on what kind of implement you're using. And so now let's look at some of our forms. We'll keep on going in waves, kind of from left to right. The bananas are all pretty bright. There are some areas on them where you see a little tonal difference, and in those places I would recommend just giving a hint of the direction of the shadow. And classical cross-hatching is a technique where every layer is at a 90-degree angle from the layer before. And this is sort of modified because, like that layer there, definitely not 90 degrees, but I feel like it helps get the shadow in the way that I want it to. And the angle just helps suggest the angle of the fruit. So like this spot here might be lightly shadowed, and then more shadow. For this part of the banana, you can see there's this little light spot here. So what I'm going to do is just cross hatch around that. Just add this one layer of pen, and then here where we see it being darker a little more, and then like maybe here again, so you have these, and again right here you have these areas where the entire thing has different levels, but so let's say like this green region, say it's all the same. So like right now they're all the same, but if I wanted it to be darker, I could just come in like that, covering everything, and just bring everything up a level in terms, or darker in value. So like sometimes you can go with the contours, and sometimes you don't need to. I think part of that's an artistic choice, and some of it's a mechanical, like it's just a necessity of like the size of picture you're doing, the kind of instrument you're using to draw, and like as we get into the rounder shapes, we might use a little more contour to get a sense of that roundness. So let's do that. Let's look at this apple. Very dark up here, and midtones through here. Dark in the at the bottom here, and then these kind of triangles of light, which you could almost see as like a rectangle of light here. So let's add this one layer of cross-hatching and leaving that bright spot alone, and keeping the line width similar in distance, and also starting to add a little bit of a hint of directional value. So up here, much darker opportunity to add, much more directional value, and then like there to bring that darkness level up without overworking it or over inking the page. And then kind of finding spots where the values are similar, and just getting those to gel with each other. So something like that, and we could maybe do a slight layer of on that side too. So on the lemon we have this shadow cast by the apple, and let's look at it like that. And then we've got this bright hot white circle here. So let's do a quick layer of kind of directional, but try to keep it light. There. And then this can come all the way down here. We see these as the sphere of the lemon moves away from the light, it gets quite a bit darker. And then let's add this shape here. And then within that there's this darker area here. So what I'm looking for is regions that I can use to just draw the shape of the shadow. I'll leave that alone for now, otherwise my tendency is to get too dark with it. And we can add another layer of darkness into the bowl, and the apple here is casting its shadow into the bowl, so this is a good place to show how you can go from the apple onto the bowl, like straight across like that. That just helps unify these bonds the shapes in the page, and helps represent what we see better, because the shadows are actually being cast by the apple onto the bowl, and so they share some of that shadow relationship. As we go, things will start to pick up the pace. The pomegranate's just the same as the apple, basically, but just bigger. So let's look for planes and then use that to just guide our strokes. So something like this for the first wave. It's rounded, so we don't want these super stark, abrupt breaks. But I think it is fine to delineate it into planes too. It doesn't have to be completely round, and the light is a little bit planar, and if we try to make it too round, it'll wind up looking weirder than it would if we maybe get a little bit of corner and straightness into those areas. So I see a darker area here, a darker area. It's kind of the shape of a sideways trapezoid or something here. And then I want to leave these bright spots alone so that we come in with the highlighting. We can keep those spots, on the brightest side of the spectrum for the picture. So this is almost like a ink painting. It is kind of cross-hatching, but it's definitely a modified cross-hatching. And what we're doing is we're, describing the values of the shadow regions and light regions that we see. We're not thinking about things in terms of line anymore, just thinking about things in terms of the shadows. So this lemon here will be a great spot to demonstrate this concept of having things merge a little bit. And we've got this bright spot here, so we're going to leave that alone. I've covered it once, but I don't want to cover it too much. And here, say on the pomegranate, I see this plane kind of going this way, so I'm going to join the lemon and the pomegranate kind of a little bit with the shadows like we did with the apple in the bowl. And it won't be immediately apparent to the viewer on the first look that that's what you've done, but it will help their mind understand those shadows as cast by each other and part of the same family of values. And the bowl, I guess it does look a little manufactured and perfectly round, but in my little world it's a little bit irregular. Maybe it's hand carved by elves in Santa's workshop or something. And let's look at this shadow here. So we've got this shape that goes like this and like that. So kind of like sort of like a letter D with a little dent in the middle. So let's just let's just start laying that down. And we've got this darker shadow cast by the pomegranate. Now here I don't want to have the lines run from pomegranate to apple, because there's a sharp bright line where the pomegranate is lit, and it's casting this sharper occlusion shadow kind of. And so over here where everything's in shadow, you kind of want these things to run together a little bit, but not here. Here you want the pomegranate, the line there, to be sharp so that it feels well lit and retains that highlight. The apple, same as the other apple and the pomegranate, just a little bit different in terms of position, and like here would be a good place to, I think, run my apple's a little misshapen, but yeah, it still looks fine. Right here we've got this situation where we want this to be a little sharper and brighter. So right up to the edge there, but not crossing it. And then we can look and see how there's like this shadow shape that goes like that across too. Then this retains its pretty much, you could have a suggestion of the shape, but it's not really shadowed there, so skip that for now. And then, hey buddy, when you ask for a demonstration, I'm giving you a demonstration. And hopefully it's not running too long for you. But I hope that you have a piece of paper and a pen and you're drawing along with me, and by the time you're done you have a beautiful piece of artwork that you can sell to one of your patrons, or hang on the wall next to your portrait of the man from Chicago. Okay, so here, they're kind of these little planes and stuff. The more planes you can get in there, the better. It's just going to make for a much better picture, much more interesting picture. It's truer to life, and it looks great. So if you see planes in there and you can delineate them using your shadows, and more power to you. That is the name of the game. Especially if you can do it without using lines, if you can do it just using the cross-hatching. So like here, it's a little lighter towards this region, so I'm going to just bring it in and a little darker through here. And there we have like a more traditional cross-hatching. And so like this area of the pear here might be a little darker. And this area here might be a little darker. And this might be all like a light shadow from the pear above. Got this dark area here. And let's look at this last pear. We see a pretty stark terminator right about there. But the pear is also colored red, and when stuff goes from color to black and white, red goes dark. Red goes dark pretty more. What am I trying to say? When you translate a color picture into black and white, the red end of the spectrum looks much darker than like the blue or the green, stuff like that. So I would say do give that some tone. I'm going to cover the whole pear here except for the green parts. And then this part here, I'm going to lay in the cross-hatching kind of at the curve of the pear. And this will be good enough to get us started. And then we can start, adding some finer details along the way here. But everything is involving the same principle that we've just put forth with the rest of the stuff in the picture. Here you've got this nice bounce back lighting, some residual lighting. Here you've got, this nice little plane here. This area here might need another layer. So then we get into this phase of the drawing where it's, we want to do what we can to fix it up, make it look better. One of those things here would be like to blend these. We've got this shadow region here where this could all be part of the same like value family, tonal family kind of. And this is the sort of stuff that's really good to do like if you're going to study for an oil painting that you want to do, the shapes of your colors and values, and go around. I can go around now looking for like little places to maybe fix up. So like I could ink up the see how forgiving this is, and for the sake of fixing the shape of my green apple there. It's pretty forgiving, I guess, given that it's a pen and once you lay a line down, it's on there. I don't draw in pen all the time, but I've been drawing in pen lately, and I've been enjoying it. And I'm pretty new to fountain pen, but let's see here. Definitely would recommend it. You can get some really interesting shapes and line qualities, and it's basically just a calligraphy pen. But the ink flow is just natural and take a little more maintenance than a normal pen, but you can just pick one up at any craft store, art supply store. And I think it's worth it in terms of the freedom of expression that it gives you over like a manufactured ballpoint with disposables and stuff like that. And so I guess I would definitely recommend it. So now I'm just going to, like I said, go around looking for places that I can highlight, and this could be a little darker maybe. I want to tweak these values to get them to right where I want them. And I want to continue to think about things in terms of tone more than line. And I'm just using the lines to suggest the tones. I almost just said my web of lines. Living in a web of lines. Um, so let's see. No, yeah, it gets to the point here where I definitely I want to start bringing the shadow from the bowl over to the side of the page. Shadow's easy to want to leave out because the shape of everything was fine, but it's an important element to the picture, and we see there's sort of, it's like we've got this light, medium, dark, medium, light, and so I mean we kind of got like a diffuse light coming from this direction. So I might want to add more up here. Here you can see the power of layering. And so we've got this way, that this way, and now if I want, which I do, I want to add another direction here. And that would be like that direction. And then for the darkest part, I might do a vertical as well. This would be your more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Orthodox, traditional style cross-hatching. And maybe bring that like all the way from like the fruit all the way out through the bowl. So you get the shadow just going over the bowl there. This a small thing, but it really does. It really does make a big difference to our minds as how we perceive the shape existing in real space. So we can look for areas that need more depth and get ready to call that demonstration. Oh, before we go though, one more quick thing, an important one at that. It's one of those things where if you leave it out, you could always add it later, but it is good to add. And I think it's really helpful. It's always been really helpful to me personally in terms of, you know, how I study stuff and how I learn from what I've done. It's considering we've taken all the time to consider the shadow families and Now let's take a little time here to consider some of the light families. And also any areas that just look too cartoonish. I want to get some be a little too flat. It's pretty bright there though. So maybe I don't want to forget this pear, the stem here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Every time I step away and I think I'm done, I see another little teeny plane that I could, amp up a little bit. Like over here in this lemon, I kind of want to bring a little bit more like that. But at a certain point, it's just, you put it away. So I've got my white pencil here, and for the person who asked for this demonstration, I recommend just going ahead and going and buying one of these. It's a white charcoal pencil. This is a pretty inexpensive one, but again, at any local craft store, art supply store, you can pick one up. So, and then also, I'm using tan toned paper. It's Strathmore paper, and I think it's 80-pound paper. Also, pretty inexpensive, but the idea is that it's not white, and that enables you. So when you're studying, maybe for like more in-depth paintings that you're going to do or something like that, you can similar to the cross-hatching, taking the white pencil and looking for these bright spots, the highlights, and just designating those shapes. So like here, we see this here, and you want to use restraint with this. You want to, especially at first, because it's tempting to want to go over the whole picture. It really is. It's a fun thing to do at the end, to be able to add the highlights like this. But you definitely want to use restraint at first, and then you can always add more later. But also, with the charcoal pencil, it is pretty forgiving. If you need to brush it off, I think you could just use an eraser if your ink was really dry, or you could use your like a paper towel and kind of like wipe it away a little bit. But better to just add it on. So we've got like brighter highlights here, here, and then like dimmer highlights here and here. And maybe a secondary bit of tone there. This lemon is this bright spot here. Almost just draws like a hot white circle there, but softer, like receding here. And this is, I think it'll make a beautiful looking picture when it's done, but I'm more concerned with how I'm learning about the light and the form. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, this will look good or whatever. I'm just trying to find the places where the light actually is, and then be faithful to that. And So let's see, this whole pretty big highlight here, and it's brightest through here. You can see it's the same. You can use the same cross-hatching technique when you're laying down the highlights. Maybe some there. Definitely some there. Diffuse, like softly, just gently, like almost light scribbling to get some of the charcoal dust in there to like lighten it up a little bit, but I don't want to treat it like it's a bright highlight right there. With this pear, this whole side, you could say that whole side is just bright, and bright here, maybe bright, all the way through here, and then just bring them together a little bit because this is one of the brightest spots on the picture. So this is running a little long, but this cross-hatching demo has gone from cross-hatching with pen to cross-hatching with charcoal, and hopefully it's valuable to you, getting something from it, because if if it's picking up on the camera and so forth, it should. So maybe some like light bounce lighting here, and there's a little bounce lighting here from the lighter piece of fruit where the light's going like bouncing here and hitting here, but that's nothing as bright as this spot here. So onto the apple. Got these squigglies and these like really hot white spots, and then I'm going to just go over this again lightly with like a cross-hatching stroke for that. And now the pomegranate. Got this spot there. So to kind of get some of the texture and brightness lined up with the pomegranate, I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of general light cross-hatching with that. Oh, very light, subtle, maybe subtle thing right there, low light, and maybe a little more here. More there. Let's see anywhere in these. Need some more. The edge of the bowl might be good to hit too, just so that it's not sitting there completely unhighlighted. And maybe the edge of this pear with a light, soft one, not an intense one. And the bananas here need a little bit of something just to you have that cohesion with the rest of the piece. And side of the apple might use a little bit too. All right, so I think that's going to do it for this demonstration, and we're clocking in at almost an hour. I might as well go just a little bit more, just for the sake of having a nice hour. Just like this. Even though this pomegranate's red there, the light's coming from this direction here, so a little bit of that highlighting on that face of the plane doesn't hurt. See if my pen's still working or if I'm going to have to go wash it before I use it again. Oh good, it's still working. So let's just unify that area a little bit. Unify this a little bit too. I almost want to, this is looking a little too geometric for me. I almost want to just, bring it out like that. Just have a little different angle to get this darker area. And maybe right here. And maybe right here a little bit too. Kind of using the contour of the pear for that part. Well, sometimes I feel lucky to be alive. I mean, humanity has existed on this earth for a long time, and it wasn't all the time that a person could sit down with a pomegranate, a banana, an apple, and a pear, and a lemon, all in the same bowl, all at the same time. Oh, and an apple, without being like a monarch or, like a prince or a pope or something like that. This spot here could use a little bit of something. So I want to have a range of values. I want to have, the darkest all the way up to the lightest, and, the modified crosshatching and the more traditional stuff. And it has a lot to do with how you want it to look, but I think it also has to do with what materials you're using and just what feels real and realistic to you at the time. So yeah. Maybe do a little bit more on this spot there. Okay, well, hopefully this was light enough to see. It's pretty dark in my studio today, so thanks for being with me, and I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with someone else who might enjoy it too. And yeah, help me build my channel and up my algorithm and all that good stuff. And thanks so much for being with me today. Keep drawing, and I will see you next time.